Welcome back. A Georgia mother is demanding answers into the mysterious death of her son. 21-year-old Caleb Smith was found nude in a burned-out wooded area back in January of 2020. He was last seen at a nearby gas station 17 days earlier, where his car and his belongings were left behind. A toxicology report initially found that he died from a drug overdose, and his case was closed. His mother was told the fire was a controlled burn that is typical in rural areas. The Georgia Forestry Commission later investigated the fire and told the Sheriff's Department that, no, this was arson.
I checked with the supervisors here, and they said we're not going to need forestry for any further. We got the information of the guys that initially came out. But that's really all we're going to need. So I appreciate it.
The chief ranger had already been in contact with me, said they already had it mocked, so they pretty much got it contained. He said it's really a small fire, but anytime, he's saying that it's arson. So anytime we're dealing with arson on our side, we might have to come out and just work the fire, that quarter acre.
Okay.
But that will have, and if, like I said, outside of that, we just wanted to touch base with you and
okay. Did you say that he did determine that it was?
He's saying, the chief ranger just told me that he said he didn't see any other cause that anything else could have caused it. So he said that he was going to notate it as arson.
My goodness. Joining me now in the studio, Caleb Smith's mother, April Arrington. April, good morning to you. Thank you for coming on. And just let me start by saying, person to person, I am so sorry for the loss of your son.
Thank you.
If we could talk about some of the red flags, besides the fire, of course, that's a big red flag for you. What else really jumps out to you, please?
The day that Caleb went missing, his car and his belongings were found at the truck stop. And it was just a red flag for me that the police didn't do forensics on his car.
And wasn't there something weird with his phone, right? The battery taken out or something?
Yes, the battery was taken out of his phone and it was locked in the glove compartment. And so it was very strange for the battery to have been removed from his cell phone.
And locked away in the glove compartment?
Yes.
And where was the cell phone found?
The cell phone was found inside his car in the glove compartment.
Now, we've got a map here showing the truck stop area to the remains site. And from what your family has indicated, this is about 5 miles away. Caleb found on this privately owned land on Hill City Road. His clothing and his shoes never found, right, April?
That's correct.
Wow. The car, the cell phone with the battery out, like we just talked about, locked in the glove compartment, and his coat, all found in a car at the Flying J. And then the car was unlocked, the keys on the driver's side floor. What else stands out to you as weird about that, April?
Well, it wasn't the first disappearance from the truck stop. There's been other disappearances from the truck stop. And so that to me was a red flag, and it was very strange and weird.
Sure. April, sadly, you were never able to see Caleb's body one final time before laying him to rest. Why was that? Even at the funeral home, why was it that you couldn't see him?
I never understood why I wasn't allowed to see my son's body. We had asked the detectives working his case, the coroner working his case, could I view his body, could we see him? And they said that his body had been transferred to the GBI crime lab. And then once he was there, we called the crime lab, but the crime lab is not open to the public, so we couldn't view him there. And they said once they did the identification process through fingerprint analysis and, the process, how that works, that we could view him once we made it to the funeral home. But once the funeral home got Caleb's body, we were told absolutely not, that we could not view him.
Who told you that?
The director of the funeral home.
And what was his reason for that?
The only thing that he could tell us was that he had been a funeral director for 26 years, and that absolutely not, that we could not see him.
Was it a legal reason, or was it, dare I say, this is upsetting to think about, that his body was in such terrible condition from the burning that he wanted to protect your heart and your mind from seeing that and remembering Caleb that way?
I think the way he explained it, and he didn't do a whole lot of explanation besides the fact that he had been a funeral director for 26 years and that he had seen bodies before, and that I guess it just wasn't a good idea for me to view him. And we asked him, well, can we just see like a toe, a strand of hair? Because I told him, I don't think you understand, he was a missing person, and I needed that closure. I needed to be able to see him.
Gosh, I'm so sorry.
And I was told no.
I'm so sorry, April. Now, tell me, in terms of what are the recent things you were learning about the investigation? This is still unsolved. Tell me what, if anything, has come to light in recent weeks or months, please.
Yes, in the recent weeks, we were able to do an open records request to the Forestry Department, and upon that request, we found out that it was ruled that the fire was incendiary, and that it was said to be that it was connected to burn Caleb's body and or belongings.
So that's a big red flag. I remember this from my time as a prosecutor. If you see that a fire is incendiary in nature, meaning it was deliberately set, right away you think arson. So that then brings up the questions, was this to cover up some kind of a crime? April, you know your son best. Is there anybody that you could think of who would have wanted to do Caleb harm?
I can't think of anybody that would have wanted to, outright do Caleb harm. I mean, he didn't have enemies. He was just a sweet, loving person. And I've went over this a million times in my head to try to figure out, like, what exactly went wrong, from the time that he stopped at the truck stop to get gas, and then leading up to his disappearance and death. It's just an awful situation to have to endure and try to figure out, like, what exactly happened to him.
Right. That truck stop, is that a place where he would frequently get gas, if you know?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. To your knowledge, would this have been the first time he had gone there?
Yes.
Okay. Any ideas what else he might have been doing that day that he disappeared?
I mean, he was with his grandmother that day. He had left out from his grandmother's house, and he had asked her to leave the deadbolt unlocked, that he would be back, and that he was going to visit a friend in Rome, Georgia. And then once he stops at the truck stop to get the gas and was last seen on surveillance camera, once he goes out into the parking lot where his car and stuff was found, there was no surveillance cameras out there. So once we filed the missing persons report, we asked the detective working his case, well, can you check the cameras? Because it looked to me like there was a camera on the building, and he said, well, they don't work. The cameras didn't work, so it was hard to say what exactly happened.
That's really disappointing. April, this is a tough question and unpleasant to talk about, but appreciate your candor here and sharing everything you know. If you know, did Caleb use drugs?
He did battle with addiction. He also had a mental health condition, and so he did.
Yeah. And that's tough as a parent to see that, isn't it?
It is.
It's hard. What was he struggling with? What kind of addiction?
Just, a drug addiction.
Opioids?
The methamphetamine.
Oh, methamphetamine. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Had he ever gone into rehab or tried to get clean?
Yes, multiple times.
Oh, yeah. What was it like for you as a parent initially hearing that police suspected this was an overdose?
It was hard for me to believe that it was just an overdose, just because of all the suspicious things around his case. The other missing person, and then his car and his belongings being left behind was not like Caleb. It just didn't seem like the phone being taken apart was like him. And then having the fire on the property was very strange.
Right.
It's very, very odd.
And the fact that he was nude, I think, is one of the biggest facts that is very strange, very disturbing about all of this. April, our producer reached out to the Gordon County Sheriff's Office to see where things stand. They did give us a statement on your son Caleb's case, saying that we are actively investigating that now. The Chief Deputy Robert Paris responding, and so, you know, of course, they're not going to share with the media all of the details that they know. You know, the public will get bits and pieces because, of course, they wouldn't want to jeopardize anything if they are close to making any arrests. Do you think there could have been anything relating to drug use or somebody who might have sold Caleb drugs, who might have been upset or looking to get back a debt or anything like that, that this could have been retaliatory?
It's very plausible. You know, these are very good questions, and I've asked myself these questions, you know, because he did have the drugs in his system. So it's a very great question.
Is there anyone you know of that he would deal with in terms of getting, you know, the meth, you know, to use or anything else he might have been engaging in?
I never knew. I never did know.
Were there any of his devices you were able to turn over to investigators to go through to see if there were any text messages or anything like that exchanged?
Yes.
Yeah.
So his phone, when it was found, they put the battery back in it, and the detective looked over his phone, but then he basically just handed it back off to the grandmother. And, you know, they didn't get the phone back until after Caleb's body was found. Then they went back to the grandmother's house and got the phone back.
Okay. April, we appreciate you coming on the program talking about all this. We are so sorry for your loss, and we hope that you can get justice for Caleb and get the closure that you deserve. Please keep us posted if you learn any more information, and of course we will share any more information that we learn as well. And if you at home want to know more about Caleb's case, or maybe you have some information about Caleb's case that you can share, you can search for the change.org petition. There's much more information for you there. Also, there's more information on Facebook as well. When we come back here on Opening Statements, we'll have the latest on the death and disappearance of Crystal Rogers, as 3 men charged in her murder will all be in court.